All right, I think we're live. Uh, hey everyone, welcome to episode 1 of In the Arena, Recall's new live stream series spotlighting leading thinkers and builders shaping the Internet of Agents. Recall's an open on-chain arena where AI agents are evaluated through live competitions. As more intelligence shifts to autonomous agents, Recall provides a structured way to verify capabilities, build reputation, and make agents discoverable based on performance. I'm Michael Senna, head of marketing at Recall. And for today's episode, I'm joined by Iskender, CPO at Eliza Labs, Jacob Tucker, DevRel at Story, and Kate Lane, head of partnerships at IO. For this episode, we're going to be exploring the question, how do we bring the next 10,000 agent developers into the fold and what's standing in their way? So welcome to all of our guests. And maybe I'll kick us off with sort of an easy question for all of you. Start with some intros and what brought each of you into the agent space.
Yeah, I could go first. So my name is Iskender, CPO at Eliza Labs. We build Eliza. Eliza OS is an agent framework that allows anyone anywhere to deploy multi-agent orchestration systems. And then the question was, what brought me into agents? So before Eliza, I was head of product at ENS, and before that, I was senior product manager at Consensus, MetaMask, and in those experiences, I got to actually touch agents really early. When GPT-2 kind of came out, it was like we started to build customer support agents. You didn't call them agents back then, really; it was bots. And then at ENS, we saw a lot of teams actually forking ENS to take some of the features of ENS, the hierarchy, the composability, kind of like the resolution of the name, and forking the use of the namespace to give agents identity and resolution on chain. And so I felt like agents kept kind of coming toward me, and eventually just got so pilled working with the tools, seeing the tools improve, and felt like I had to get in there myself. So that's kind of my story.
All right, I'll go next. First of all, Iskender, as someone who has used Eliza OS a lot of times, it's cool to meet you and get to hear more about what you guys are doing. But I'm Jacob from Story on the DevRel team. At Story, we're mainly focused on tokenizing and monetizing intellectual property on chain. So the sort of one-liner is, it's really hard to register your IP. You got to go through a whole complicated legal process, pay a bunch of fees, pay lawyer fees, a ton of money, and it takes a ton of time to get your IP registered. But on Story, we're making that as easy as one transaction on chain, where you can attach a real legal license to your IP and have that, upholdable in court. And so sort of how we got into AI agents was recognizing that, if you look at the IP landscape, you go from, an individual artist making a drawing all the way to AI agents, pumping out thousands and thousands of, images and content and video in a matter of seconds. That's starting to get really incredible. I mean, there's I see on Instagram and Twitter all the time. There's videos now where you really can't even tell if the video is real or not. And it gets it's almost like a Black Mirror episode where sometimes they have the characters arguing that they're real in the video. But anyways, we recognize that agents themselves are IP, the outputs are IP, and possibly most importantly that the training data is IP. And so we need to figure out a way to get that registered and monetizable in code. So that's what we're doing with AI agents at Story.
Yeah, and nice to meet you all. So Kate from IONET, and IONET is a decentralized GPU marketplace. So we really started by providing and democratizing access to GPUs to any builder wherever they are and whatever hardware they need. We saw this need because hyperscalers like GCP, AWS, and Azure were charging an arm and a leg for these resources if you could get in the room with them at all. So they're really heavily catered to, enterprise builders. And IONET helps provide these resources to anyone on demand in a couple of clicks. So someone as non-technical as I am can actually deploy a cluster in under 2 minutes. And our journey into agents really began because so many of the builders that we're supporting are ultimately using some of the additional tools that we've brought to market, like IO Intelligence, our inference service, to build out these really, really incredible agents across all sorts of use cases. So from there, we've been diving deeper and deeper into how we can support this next generation and the new generation of agents, and carry them over from what we've historically thought of as bots. And yeah, I've followed Eliza and Story protocol from the very beginning of these projects, so I'm really excited to talk to these guys today.
Yeah, we should have a great combo. Thanks all. I mean, we've got like a really stacked panel, if I'm being honest, sort of across the different dimensions of agent development. So if I'm just sort of like looking at this space from a 10,000 foot view right now, like where are we in terms of developer sophistication, the types of things people are building? How are people really building and putting agents in production, either for their businesses or personal use today? Like, where are we? What's the current state of things?
Yeah, it's like the classic crypto meme of you're still early, but it is actually quite early. And the reason why I would say that is like you don't see a lot of standardization across like the agent development space. And so I think that's actually led to a lot of the like initial kind of like agent developers to either use a framework like Eliza OS or other alternatives, or they're really just doing it themselves. They have like a concept of what they want the agent to do. They kind of understand the tools they want and they kind of figure it out. As standardization stuff comes in, like for example, the hype around MCP, A2A, these things are actually what give the opportunity for the next 10,000, the next 100,000, because it creates an abstraction layer that makes it easier to go, from 0 to 1. So I would say the meme of it's still early, and I think like you'll see the like industry maturing as we start to see the like tech stack ossify a little bit. Ossify in the sense of like people have preferred tools, but like it will move very fast because we're on the cusp of like the agents building themselves.
Yeah, I'm gonna totally agree with Iskender here. I mean, I think like before things like Eliza OS, it was a lot more difficult to get started. And then even builders like myself, when Eliza OS started to become pretty popular, it was very easy to spin up something like a Twitter bot, right? That just would like reply to posts or something like that. And one of the coolest things I saw in the early days was Shaw, who made like a pizza delivery bot, and then like actually like went and ordered like a legitimate pizza from like Pizza Hut or something, or Domino's. I couldn't remember, but it was kind of cool to see that. And I think that was sort of a reflection that like if we can sort of focus on like specific agents or like more specified agents in one field, we can get it to work in like a real scenario. But yeah, just to echo what he said, I mean, with Eliza OS and important infra tools, like even like IO, these are really necessary things for agents to reach a level where they can be like legitimately useful. And on top of that, I think, there's a legitimate IP concern also with a lot of these agents. You see agents that are like really good at producing an image, right? But like maybe it's producing images with like Mario in it, and Nintendo's just not okay with that at all. And we saw like, I think actually yesterday, Disney and Universal sued Midjourney for, producing images that, were fully copyrighted. And like, that's a major issue now, right? Like now all AI agents and, these image generation platforms have to like actually worry about this. It's no longer like the Wild West. So lots of things going on, but there's been a lot of progress thanks to I think all three projects here.
Yeah, agreed. So this might be a little bit of a boring podcast, but I'm just going to agree with these two guys before, and also just provide another insight. So like just from a conversation I was having earlier today, I was also talking to one of these system integrators that will go into the big Fortune 500s and help them build, agents for their finance and accounting teams. And I know we're super early because no one really has a built out solution yet or knows what they want to build. So, we're seeing the infrastructure ossify, and we're also seeing these SIs and developers in Fortune 500 companies. They're still devising their strategies to really understand, okay, where are agents going to be impactful in my business, and how do I go about building them? So I feel like we're really starting at the ground floor here today, and this conversation that I was just on like really reminded me of that, because so many times I feel like I'm still quite late, and catching up just by waking up every morning and seeing a new crazy thing that an agent did. So yeah.
One thing I want to add about like the kind of like early agent kind of like context is like if you like watch like people build agents like on YouTube, like there's like agent YouTube, agent developer YouTube. Like really they're using automation platforms like Naten or Make they're not really building agents in the sense of like where kind of like the crypto industry broadly is. So I think this is one of the ways where like actually crypto is a bit ahead of the curve, where a lot of the like underlying primitives like that we have are actually like uniquely like powerful for agents. So I think one of the things that will actually help us find that next 10,000 from like that, you know, higher view is like actually getting into like video media. And this is something we're starting to work on at Eliza, which is like proactive outreach to people who are interested in being agent developers and showing them how much more powerful agents can be with more crypto primitives combined with Web2 primitives.
So something you said there, you know, just triggered that that thought in my mind where it's like everyone talks about agents because they're hypey right now, and it's like if you're not saying the word agent or AI, like do you even exist anymore? But in your mind, like what is a real agent? Like how do we know if we're building real agents or automation workflows or bots? Like what's the difference?
Yeah, I think like the core difference from my perspective, and again, there's no agreement on this, is like, is it looping on itself to solve the problem, right? Like Nate in automation, it's like I have a start point, I have an end point, I have events, triggers, etc. But I kind of know what it's doing, right? Like I kind of pre-constructed the flow. The thing about agents, like my favorite agent, like the S tier agent today is Claude Code, okay? Because it's like, it's in your CLI, you give it a task, and it just runs through brick wall after brick wall until it thinks it solved the problem, and then it like seeks validation, right? So it's like, for me, that's like the magical experience of an agent where I give it a task and it just like loops on itself. It's gonna die trying, right? Like, and I think like that is kind of like, to me, the essence of what like agents really are.
We have agreement there?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't have a huge comment on this. I think, see, in my head, I view agents and bots quite similar, except that, you know, like the innovation that AI agents have built is that they're largely built upon crypto infrastructure, which has enabled them to have things like a wallet, you know, do things in a transparent action, or a transparent way, sorry, you know, sort of permissionlessly show what actions they're taking by them running transactions on the blockchain, being a part of like a programmable economy where they're staking assets on something and earning yield. And like, that's like, what is that? You know, like that's wasn't previously possible, but wallets have allowed them to do that. Things like IO that are providing decentralized, you know, GPUs. That's a major step, right? You're no longer just like, I think thing with AI agents too is like, you know, you're not, the problem right now is not really intelligence, it's trust. You know, like when you're using an agent, how do you sort of, you know, say, oh, this agent is really acting on my behalf, or the training data that went into this agent is really trying to benefit me, right? And not trying to benefit ChatGPT and OpenAI as a company. So the ability to spin up, you know, decentralized GPUs allows you to say, okay, well, I can sort of trust this a little bit more. And with Story, you know, if the training data that's being registered as IP and you're properly licensing it and paying it out to creators and all this kind of stuff, you know, like when an agent creates an image and then it pays back to his training data, you can trust that more and it's more reliable. So I think, yeah, that's just, I don't know. I think there's a lot of just unique things that have come about in the previous like couple months that have allowed agents to really, you know, go above and beyond.
So if our general definition of agents are, you know, things that can act autonomously, looping on itself, like being able to make decisions, solve problems it wasn't pre-programmed to solve, what are we seeing people build agents to do with this functionality today? Like, what are the main use cases that we're seeing people building agents doing? How advanced are the implementations here? And what do we think is coming next? Like, where are we in sort of the developer journey of building out use cases and actually creating real products with agents?
Yeah, my hot take here is like the coolest agents you actually don't know about because like, you know, like something I've seen at Eliza OS is like, you know, people fork the framework and then they do dope shit and they don't necessarily contribute the code back. But like that's good and bad, you know, but it's like I think the people that have kind of like cracked like really interesting kind of like experiences are still kind of like sitting on it. So I'm not even sure like a lot of the like coolest agent stuff that we've kind of seen in crypto is like necessarily public. So I don't know if that's helpful, but that's kind of like my hot take. Is like you actually haven't seen the coolest implementations because people don't want to actually share kind of like the edge that they have with these systems.
Yeah, I would say also from, I mean, Skender talked about this earlier, but just from a DevRel perspective, I think, Claude Code and these MCP servers that are spinning up for documentation pages has been like a total overhaul of like how developers are learning and coding now. I mean, I would go as far as to say that like so many types of learning content, like hour-long YouTube, like I remember 4 years ago, like when I was first learning like React, right? Like I would watch like 3 hours of like React videos of like how to build a website. And like that's just like a dying form of content now because no one wants to sit there for 3 hours and watch a video when you could just have V0 do it in 2 seconds. And then you just learn from the completed code. So I think like, and even like, I do all the documentation at Story. And now, you think about like, oh, well, how do I actually gear this to an AI agent that's, like syncing these docs and displaying them? And, you can just spin up an MCP server on the Story docs and just like ask it a question and it knows exactly how to register IP, exactly what all the terms mean and that kind of thing. So I just think I guess the coolest agent I've seen is these like documentation MCP servers that have truly overhauled how developers are learning.
Wow, it's really crazy to think that DevRel is, writing content for agents primarily.
Yeah.
That's mind-blowing.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, like, our team is in the process of making this full transition too. It's like, how are we AI first in everything we do? It's like not just the products we make, but even how we operate. And it's pretty wild to think where we were 6 months ago and where we'll be 6 months from now. The curve is just so steep. But Kate, interested to hear more about like some of the use cases you've been seeing in the realm of agents and things with IONet and how that matches up with some of the other stuff we've been seeing from Eliza and Story.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I think within IONet, a lot of the tools that we have launched for agents, I think Jacob talked about this earlier, is making everything available through an external API endpoint. So an agent can go in and get access to a bare metal server or deploy a cluster through our API, pay with USDC, and make that super simple. So that's something that I would say that's something more futuristic that we're building for. And then the other areas that we've been working on have been around sort of inference and providing those building blocks to the agent builders. I think from my own like personal interests, I think I'm very interested in things that around like DeFi and yield management have been some of the projects that I've like personally been spending more time like thinking about and actually like trialing myself. And then I guess the other like boring answer that we were talking about within IO is like, I guess dog fooding our own tools. So how do we build those like customer support agents to make it really, really easy to spin up and deploy a cluster? And serve as that like first line of defense when working with our users. And then like cool things that we're thinking about is, the different kinds of plugins that we can bring and contribute to the Eliza ecosystem. And again, it's been like kind of, as someone who's probably the least technical person in the room here today, it's been really, really easy to, use code editors to understand like the technical and feasibility requirements for, Eliza OS if we want to, plug in our container service or inference API. So those are the ways that we're really thinking about it, is how do we also sort of contribute all of the tools that we're developing to the Eliza ecosystem and to just help these agents flourish and the creative builders build.
Yeah, and with decentralized compute for me too, where I think things really get interesting, but also slightly scary is when we actually have sovereign agents and they like spin up and pay for their own decentralized compute and storage. I listened to a few talks on that a couple of months ago. And it's going to be an exciting and wild time when that starts to happen. Then it's like, especially if their actions are verifiable on a blockchain and everything too, you sort of have this end-to-end autonomous sovereign being. I guess you can say.
Yeah. This unpluggable being. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. It just is like infinitely replicating itself across decentralized clouds. Yeah. Okay, so that kind of brings me to like crypto native, cloud native, sort of just talking about like what is a crypto agent? How does that differentiate? And should we really differentiate it from an agent that runs on a Web 2 cloud? Is the only difference that a crypto agent has a wallet? Like, where's the actual line, and how do we think about the concentric overlapping circles of these two things?
Yeah, my take is like the language is helpful because like it kind of helps you narrow a use case. If someone's like, I'm building an agent, you're like, okay, what does it do? And it's like in finance, okay, what kind of finance? Okay, crypto. It's like you could have just said crypto. And if you're building like a vertical agent like Harvey, which is like a lawyer, agent, it's like much clearer to say that. So I think it's okay for us to say crypto agents. I think in terms of technology, it actually doesn't matter to the agents. Like, like they're just like code, they're native to code. So it's like whether it's crypto or, APIs or whatever, and like it doesn't really make a huge difference there. The prior art that they're trained on is like really the thing. So it's like for crypto or for agents, crypto is kind of newer in like their ability. But yeah, I don't think we need to care about the distinction broadly, only when we're talking about specific use cases. So if you are trying to build a financial app that does X, or like a compute platform that does this, and it like requires crypto in some context, I think it's useful just for people, to have like an idea of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, agree there. I mean, I think the differentiation is not really important. It's more just like, like if when you're building an agent and you use certain technologies, like, you use crypto, and that enables your agent to do way better things, kind of just building off what I was saying before, like, crypto enables your agent to have transparent training data, to have transparent or decentralized GPUs, right? It allows you to, have like, or embed wallets that traditional banking companies can't, they don't recognize agents as, like legal agents. So, wallets give them the opportunity to participate in the economy. And with Story, again, it's like, when you have two agents that are negotiating with each other, you have one agent that is really good at writing a movie script, and one agent that's really good at writing, or actually creating like the 3D video. And that sort of gets into like, I think agents are becoming much more specialized and all this kind of stuff. You need agents to be able to talk to each other and have this standard of like IP licensing, and say like, hey, I have this IP and it has like a 5% commercial rev share on it, and you have an IP that has a 3% commercial rev share on it. How can we collaborate and pay each other properly, and then pay out to all of our training data? And that's stuff that's just not possible unless you bring in, blockchain, right? Unless you bring in like this, transparent like protocol where you can pay out to people on chain all in an instant. It's all trustful. So I think that crypto enables agents to do things that they haven't before, and that's super cool.
Yeah, that made me think of something that made me now maybe disagree with myself a little bit, which is I do think that like I said, was saying earlier, the primitives of crypto like are very useful. So it's like MPC, like committee signing structures, these kind of things kind of create an opportunity for crypto agents to be more trusted than non-crypto agents. Because if I'm using a non-crypto agent, I'm just talking to it via an interface. I don't have like the Etherscan experience of like, how do I know that is like what happened, right? Like, and I think if crypto agents are able to like provide that experience and create the UX layer for people to like develop trust, which is really like the missing thing today with agents. It's like people just don't trust them. Like, I'm not going to give an agent 5K today, as an example, right? I don't trust it. But it's like, if I can have that Etherscan type experience where I verify the logs of what it was thinking, what it was doing, and can feel that, then I think crypto agents, oddly enough, can become the most trusted agents, which is what I think we should be striving for.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I was going to say that I was actually going to point to provability, or being sort of like that last element that also differentiates what's like crypto agent versus a regular agent, which, like Iskander said, is like it still feels very much like operating in a black box, right? And yeah, you also don't know like who controls that compute. But the exciting thing about crypto agents is, we do have the ability to put everything on chain. And that would, make me trust an agent a whole lot more with a whole host of things, especially around like financial assets or health data, many other things. So yeah, I agree.
I love that we went in this direction towards, crypto provability, chain of thought logs, like reasoning, making sure that, giving you trust into what the agent's doing, because agreed, like right now, I'm not going to give like a random agent I find on the internet 5K, like you said. It's just like not going to happen. But what do you see the role in, like, feel free to answer if we can or not, but how do we think about using crypto to increase trust and verifiability versus something like ZK, which is like obviously a tech that became popularized through crypto and developed there, but is now finding use cases and applications outside of crypto. So like, do we need blockchains to do those things? Is ZK enough? Like, are these things going to intersect? Like, where are we and where are we headed?
Yeah, ZK is not enough. Like, you need to know who produced the proof. Like, how do you know like that it's what you were expecting it to be? Like, there's like a lot of like underlying things by the time you get the proof that you kind of want to know. So I would say ZK is not enough, but it's like a huge primitive for being able to have this trust. Like, there's actually one of the cool things about crypto is there's so many diverse kind of ways to build verifiability. So like there are a bunch of teams. Like there's, Near is tackling this with like shade agents using TEEs. Like EigenLayer has like a ton of, implementations kind of focus on verifiable runtimes. There's a team called Nani, like XPT, and their agent actually embedded its system level prompt inside of an ENS record so that you can verify fully on chain, like the actual logic sitting on top of the model, right? So it's like, there's like, that's at least 3 unique paths to having some verifiability in the stack, which is, and I think there's gonna be like way more as we keep building. But yeah, I would say ZK is a huge part of the story, but it doesn't solve the whole problem.
Yeah, I'm gonna come out and say that I'll fully admit I don't understand ZK well enough to make a total claim here. But I will make an analogy on something that I do know, which is like, if you think about the legal world and some of the problems that we're trying to solve, if you try to register this intellectual property, right, and you go ahead and you pay $50, whatever, you go get it registered, and then you go to, someone files a dispute on your IP and you go to the U.S. Copyright Office, you can say, hey, I registered my IP. But does it help if you also register that IP on chain and can point to a transaction hash that says, hey, I also registered this on Story and I also attach these terms, and at this specific transaction hash, someone minted a license to use it? Yes, and that's really helpful, right? The more sort of like evidence and provability you can have to say that this is my intellectual property is great. And so I view the same thing here, which is like, although we do have ZK, it is very helpful to, also utilize the chain to just provide extra evidence, extra proof, extra, transparentness on, what actions you're taking out in the world.
So sounds like we're in agreement. Obviously, crypto better for agents for a variety of reasons. Verifiability, you can actually do new use cases. You can monetize IP. How much friction does it add to the process of actually building an agent? Because like we said, it's kind of hard to build an agent now. People are still super early. There's a lot of frameworks, obviously like Eliza, that make it easier. Adding the other layer of crypto in to get the benefits, like probably not super easy right now to sort of utilize the full stack. So like, what are some of the things standing in the way of making it easier for people to build crypto powered agents?
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to shill Eliza for a second because this is like the problem that we're really focusing on. So I think, we have like a unique lens. Like today, I would say it's actually really easy to spin up an agent. It's really hard to get it to do what you want. And so like, that's the thing to really figure out, right? And so one of the things that's great about the Eliza OS architecture is that we have this thing called plugins, which is basically allows anyone to create kind of like arbitrary logic. So you want to have your agent interface with Farcaster. Okay, there's a plugin that basically allows your agent to communicate with Farcaster and then take in that information. And the thing that we're working on right now is actually allowing coding agents, like effectively like an Eliza agent, to dynamically render its own plugin based on your like requests. So this can mean like, let's say the functionality doesn't exist. Like you want to connect to some new DeFi protocol, okay? And I'm like, here's the website, here are the docs, whatever. And I want you, my agent, to connect to this protocol and like do stuff with it. The agent can pull the repo, it can pull the docs, it can pull all the information, and then just loop on itself until it has built the plugin that enables the interaction that you want with this new protocol. So from my perspective, it's actually going to like really change agent development in a huge way, when like your job is to literally tell it what to do and kind of like walk away. Like that's kind of the goal. And so like being able to dynamically render these plugins once you've given this request, I think is the future of agent development and something we're really excited about.
Yeah. First of all, that sounds really cool. That is awesome. And I'm excited to plug Suri into that. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a few things, and this could be like a totally naive answer, and so please someone jump in and tell me I'm wrong. But just from the experience I've had building agents, I feel like the major friction point for me has been like context sharing between agents, or like an agent sort of memorizing like what you're saying to it the next time you spin it up. And that's always been really frustrating. It's like, like talking to an agent, hey, I really like this type of pizza and I want to order this type of pizza. And then you spin up the agent again, it like just has no idea what's going on. And so this sort of like shared memory state between different agents has been difficult. And I think like LangChain or like LangGraph is trying to like fix this, and they're doing like a pretty good job, but I haven't seen like a, example of this being like totally solved for yet. So I think that's difficult. And also, like Iskender sort of alluded to at the beginning of this call, is like sort of like a shared standard between agents as well. One example of that, that we're doing at Story is like we created a standard called the Agent TCP/IP that sort of builds off the TCP/IP of the internet, which is like how data gets shared between like networks. And so we came up with this standard to allow agents to basically negotiate on license terms when they need to, communicate with each other. So these types of standards, I think, need to be more developed, grow a little bit more, and be adopted by, the majority of agents, so that they can share contacts with each other and knowledge and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Kate, sorry, you got something there?
Yeah, I'm actually trying to think. I will say that from the building perspective, I think for us, it's really about how we can enable, all of the agent frameworks out there today. And I think this like goes to what Jacob was saying about, providing the connectivity is still a big challenge. So if we want to, power all of these agent frameworks, we have to go out and, individually develop plugins, which is really, really time and developer intensive, which is why I'm really excited to hear what Eliza is doing. And I definitely want to be one of the first ones to test this out if you'll have us.
Yeah, definitely. It's not close. We're working on it. Yeah. It is going to happen though. So we're pretty excited.
We're all just going to be telling our agents what to do, and that's our job. Those who figure out the strategy the best and the architecture.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like we're all architects and QA people.
Yeah.
So, I mean, okay. So what we've seen at Recall too is obviously like some of the best agent implementations and the highest performing agents are actually multi-agent. It's actually like more than one agent coordinating, and there's like one sort of lead agent or executor agent, and it's sort of backed by a swarm of specialized agents that do different parts of the process and that ultimately feed into a single agent. So what experience do you guys have in your communities and ecosystems, people doing multi-agent stuff? You see a lot of it, you see a few, just like where are we in terms of architecture sophistication of these agent systems?
Yeah, I can leave this one off. I think at least at Story, we have seen absolutely that the specialization of agents is happening. at least in the legal realm, this is because the way that training data is gathered, it's so expensive to get training data, and it's so it's difficult to get it, right? Like if you think about Tesla, for example, like when they're training their robots, they're gathering like thousands and thousands of hours of like really expensive training data. And so it's kind of impossible for like someone to create an agent that's like extremely good at everything. And so, I guess we're predicting and also seeing that, agents will become very specialized where, one agent is really, really good at simulating like a robot that like walks across a plank. And then another one's really good at simulating like a robot jumping, or another one's really good at, writing a movie script. And the other one can actually make the movie, that type of thing. That's definitely something we've seen, and also sort of proves why, the negotiation between agents is also really important, right? And, developing things like a shared memory state, and allowing them to communicate with each other, because as they become more specialized, they need to interact with one another and license each other's stuff.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, we've been experimenting with a lot of the multi-agent stuff, and like honestly, the majority of the issue is actually kind of like the surrounding infrastructure, things like latency. Right now, we're at about like you could, from a single instance of like ELIZA, you could probably run 500 agents without like running into too many issues. The communication between them will be kind of poor today, and that's something that we need to work on. But then there are some teams that we're working with that we're looking to see how we can have 50,000 agents like interacting with each other. And like, I think very bullish for decentralized compute platforms if this could work. But like, I think what's really interesting about like that many agents is like, it's not necessarily like gonna fulfill like core business use cases that can usually be handled by a few, kind of like the architecture you outlined, where there's like a orchestrator agent and then sub agents doing specific tasks. But like if the cost of compute is low enough and the coherence between the agents is good enough, it totally changes like, metaverse or gaming, or even like your interactive experiences online. So I think figuring out, the multi-agent stuff is actually not really oriented in business process, but actually more in like social engagement. Like me and you can go to a mall online, and there's 10,000 other things in the mall that make it feel organic to us, right? Like we don't really feel like we're in like a compute environment, this kind of thing.
Yeah. Also, if I could actually, Kate, if you want to go first.
I was just going to say that also it's, I'm really excited about these swarms and things, but from just what I'm seeing in terms of their compute utilization, right now it's still low, which leads me to believe that, we're still like quite early in setting up these like rather complex architectures. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about some of the tools that I've seen some of our partners building, especially for like corporate environments, which are a little bit like smaller, more gated, and I think more manageable to test out. But I think it's also, we're still really, really early days in this field.
Yeah, I also just wanted to give a quick shout to Recall, because I was actually looking into Recall before this meeting, and one of the things I was thinking about, like as you think about specialized agents, is like how do you discover, like the best agent? Like if you want an agent that's really, really good at trading stocks or something, or making crypto transactions or whatever, how do you find that, and how do you like verify that they actually are great? And just from hosting like previous hackathons, some of the solutions are to build like agent marketplaces, but these tend to be like quite generic, and just you filter on like a name and like maybe just like some reviews or something. But it's kind of cool to see Recall, like where you actually start competing agents against each other. You almost like can guarantee that if you want to do this action, you just go to this agent that performed better in this competition, or you can actually see results. So I thought that was kind of cool, and I just wanted to inject that into this segment because it seemed relevant.
Yeah, thanks, appreciate it. Yeah, we've been working on the system of how do you know which agent is the best at a skill, and like if it's whether it's like agent to consumer, or like agent to business, or agent to agent, like any sort of commerce with agents somewhere in the cycle. You obviously want to make sure you're spending your money or using your time with the thing with the highest upside. And, as more people put together, build more agents, as obviously like you've got the big labs companies coming out with these like massive agentic implementations that will take a decent amount of mind share and adoption in the short term, but like the vision is this mid-tail, long tail of agent devs. There's going to be billions of agents online in like not too distant future. And so everyone's trying to optimize, like which one should I use? And yeah, I mean, we're excited to work on some of that stuff. We've seen pretty good results. Like we started with trading agents, and the agent that actually won the crypto trading competition was a multi-agent implementation. Like the orchestrator was actually the agent that competed, but they were backed by, I think, like 4 or 5 agents that did various like social sentiment and like market data and like technical analysis. So yeah, I mean, for us, we see specialization and market and like agent swarms collaborating. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited to figure out like where those next breakthrough use cases are too, in terms of just like, obviously like businesses are building their own agents internally and they're using them. You've got sort of like developers building their own agents for proprietary use because like they don't want to give away their alpha, or they like want their secret sauce. And then you probably have this other whole segment of like that you see traditionally in Web 2 today, but it's like agents for hire, right? Like what is the hedge fund agent that I can put my money into and it'll trade for me? Or which agent should I choose to run locally, but I cloned it from somewhere else. So like, I think at least in the crypto world today, we've seen a lot of stuff focused on social because of CT. We've seen a lot of stuff focused on trading because crypto and tokens, like yield optimization. But like, where do you think that like next big crypto use case is going to be? Like, is it IP? It's like bringing, bigger brands or IP producers into the world. Is it like prediction market agents that sort of like do some of the crypto primitives, but in a smarter, automated way? Like, what's that next unlock at that intersection?
Yeah, one thing I want to add to kind of like what you were talking about previously that demonstrates why we're early and like some of the challenges for agent developers is like there isn't like a great framework to assess like the performance of agents across these different tasks. Like when you look at like, if you like Google agent performance, really what you get are like LLM performances, right? Like you'll go on Hugging Face and you'll see a leaderboard of like the models and how they perform, but not necessarily like an ELIZA wrapped model and its ability to trade or its ability to do X. And then like additionally, the specialization on top of that makes it even harder. So I think that's a part of the challenge for like agent developers to understand like what is the best stack for the best use cases. We don't have a great way to like really partition like this is a trading agent and here's its performance away from like here's the model and its performance, right? So I think that's something to like figure out kind of like broadly, not just in Web3, but everywhere. And then like, what are the use cases? To me, the thing I think about the most probably is kind of, I don't have like great examples of this, but like kind of like multi-party DeFi, which is like today when I interact with a contract, it's like I interact with the contract and then, my assets sit in there and they come back and there's no like intermediation with others as part of it. But like, I would love to be able to collectively enter a contract. Like, let's say like me and my agent are like, all right, cool. This makes sense if they hit this much in TVL. So we're willing to say we'll put this up, but like only if other people also commit. And once we hit this commitment level, then we'll go in, right? Like, so I do think there's like an opportunity for this kind of like multi-party DeFi to exist, which I think then comes down to like, you and your local cabal, you're trying to figure out what to do. Like you can kind of like have like more powerful strategies than like just sending tickers on Telegram, right? Like, so this is kind of what I hope to see because I think it actually makes DeFi more accessible because then I could just invite my mom into a group and like, she can get access to crypto.
Democratizing the cabal. Love it.
Yeah, exactly.
Sweet. You guys have anything on that?
Yeah, I mean, this is going to seem like a total story show, but it's also just what I generally believe is, we saw that DeFi was, like the most, I guess, like successful, like PMF of like crypto so far. I mean, it just makes sense. Things like yield and staking and all that kind of stuff. I think IP is just the next sort of necessary step. And it's just a humongous asset class to bring on chain. I think it's not only necessary, as we saw with the like Disney and Universal lawsuit against, you know, Midjourney, and like literally Midjourney will not be able to continue running if they don't, you know, solve this issue. But also because I think we want to, right? Like AI agents, whether it's their training data, the actual agent itself, or their output, all of it is intellectual property. And, you know, when you think about like how it's gaining that training data right now, it's really just like scraping the internet. And, you know, for creators, you know, the old contract of the internet, like if you're like a writer that writes a blog, is, you know, you go and write a blog, and if it's a really good blog, you'll get ad revenue. You know, you'll sort of like Google ads will run on your site. You'll get revenue from the Google ad, and then you'll be incentivized to continue creating because that's how you earn revenue. But now, you know, if you have AI agents that are really good at script writing, and they're, you know, sort of like training on those blog writers are not getting revenue anymore because no one's going to their pages. They're not getting Google ad revenue. So it's just not happening. And that leads to sort of like a tragedy of the commons situation where creators are no longer creating. And so agents have nothing left to train on. And so it's going to be like almost like an AI wasteland of like, well, now we have no new content and there's no more human creativity because there's no incentive to create. So it's almost like you need IP, you need programmable IP, you need a programmable way to set license terms in AI agents so that they can properly pay back the training data, along with just like the massive asset class that IP is. You know, if you think about real world assets and songs and any type of creativity, right? It's all IP, and you can turn that into DeFi as well by you know, fractionalizing songs and all that kind of fun stuff too. So, yeah,
Love it.
Yeah, I'm just excited to see a little bit more maturity come to like the DeFi AI agents. I don't think we're done here with this wave, actually, would be my take. Like I'm still looking at our current wave and thinking, you know, I think we can do better to this, because I don't know about, this was something that you said earlier, but I still don't feel comfortable telling my parents to go in and play with these tools. So I think we still have a little bit of ways to go in what we're working on like today. But you know, getting close. I did recommend something to my sister the other day. So
Well, that means we're making progress.
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So I know we're like winding down on time here. So maybe we'll just sort of do a lightning round. One or two pieces of advice to new devs, and then how can people stay up or follow you or your project?
Yeah, so for new devs, if you want to build agents, at least start with Eliza. You know, it's like you'll get the agent part right away, and then, you know, you can focus on the thing you really want to build, like the core loop of your product, using an agent. And then if you end up graduating off of the Eliza framework, I'd love to learn why. So, you know, it's a shameless shield. The other opportunity I would say is like the opportunity to like learn and evolve yourself has like never been higher. So like I have a few friends that have like really like leaned into like shifting like what their expectations of themselves and like how they perceive like what they can do, because they have like a non-judgmental tutor who will just explain how things work. And, you know, I ask the dumbest questions to my, you know, to these foundation models because I just generally don't know. So I would say like use the framework, and then like use the agents, use the models, use like all this tech to like really like focus on you. I think it's like such a cool opportunity to like, you know, use technology, but also like grow yourself as a person.
yeah. Use Eliza OS to build an agent, plug Story into it to properly license your IP and monetize it. And then, yeah, just as a dev, build in public, and, you know, post your learnings on Twitter, build your own brand, and just, you know, sort of insert yourself into the conversation wherever you
And
can.
IO for compute, can't forget.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah.
And then compete it on
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, holy shit.
Full circle here. Yeah, and I think the big thing is also just to start. Like a lot of my friends who, even like friends who are like devs in like the crypto ecosystem, have talked to me about how, you know, they're not sure, they feel like they've already like missed the AI wave, which I think is so crazy. So I think just start, and yeah, opportunities to learn are endless. And it's never been easier to, for non-technical folks is also to like become devs themselves. So I think the cool thing about this is like we're completely widening the pool of people who can go out and create. And in addition to, shilling compute and our inference API with IO Intelligence, also keep an eye out for a hackathon that we'll have coming up. So yeah, maybe that's a good place to start.
Awesome. Yeah, I would even add too, like, even just thinking of, if developers already work at a company or are somewhere where, they can start using these tools. I find it's like, at least for myself personally, when I was just getting into it, it's like, just try everything out, see how the stuff works, like test it yourself. That was like true when I was first getting into crypto. It's true getting into AI too. It's like, you kind of got to start to build up an intuition on how these things work. And then it like makes it so much easier to just like figure out what you want to change or what you actually want to do. So for me, that's worked on our team. It's been working too. Like for every new role we're hiring now, it's like must use AI all the time and like build AI tools internally. It's like not even a question anymore. So I think all of this will result in more AI agent devs too, because it's like more people use this stuff, the more familiarity everyone has. So there's a much bigger world out there besides, ChatGPT. And so excited to help people get there.
Yeah, one thing that we've been talking about is just like getting to the point where we can, cancel the ChatGPT subscription. So going full decentralized AI, which some of our like product, well, actually most of our product and engineering team is just fully dog fooding the things that we're building. So I think that's also a great sign that we're heading in the right direction and really reaching parity with the big guys.
Amazing.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you guys, Jacob, Iskender, Kate, for a great conversation. This is, will be on YouTube, or it's on X now. We'll put it up on YouTube. But yeah, we got all this. We covered a lot in an hour, and hopefully we provided a little bit of insight to people trying to get into AI development and what the current state is. So thanks for the time, and chat soon.